Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Chicanery, uh, the 10th episode, mind you. And as such, we're doing something kind of fun for this episode. So, my wonderful co host JT had kind of a fun idea. So, I'm going to let her explain quite what we're doing today.
Yeah, so basically at the beginning of the 2023 racing season, I had made a fraud watch list and I decided that I was just going to keep updating this list as the season went on with different teams, drivers, whatever in the racing world that I felt like should be on fraud watch somewhat. Like during the time, I actually had forgotten that I had made the list and came back now at the end of the season in December and revisited it. And I'm like, I forgot I made this and figured it would make a fun, somewhat lighthearted podcast episode since most of our stuff, as you know, tends to lean more on the information heavy side. And, we do occasionally, joke around and laugh and have fun with some of the stuff that we do. However, this is kind of like more on the fun side. I mean, some of the justification for why I put some of these individuals or teams or entities on Fraud Watch is based on some of it is my personal opinions, our personal opinions, and some like factual stuff that has happened to them throughout the season. But without further ado, we can get into it. First up on the list, which I'm sure may not be shocking, but may kind of be a little bit controversial, to be honest. I hope not, because in my opinion, it really shouldn't be. But Meyershank Racing in both IMSA and IndyCar were the first team rather, on this list. We are going to be assessing whether or not did they beat the allegations or did they not.
Huh. So, I think that's interesting. Certainly in IndyCar, absolutely not. They were slow and just broadly speaking, completely useless. I It's tough. When you go on the IMSA side, of course, and we'll get into this in a bit. They won large air quotes there. Um, the 24 hours of Daytona, but of course they got busted for cheating, blah blah yada yada, and they had okay pace kind of from there on out, but it seemed to kind of fall off. Now, I don't know if that was because everybody else got quicker or whatever they did at Daytona because they got caught, pegged back their pace. That's to a little tough to say. Um, so on the IndyCar side, absolutely. Still slow and useless team is just slow and useless. On the IMSA side, I'd say probably not either.
That's what
Um,
I'm saying. They were
but
not like Daytona, sure, they were great at Daytona up until like it came out a month or two later that they cheated and obviously got whacked for that. And then it seemed like you said, their pace seemed to kind of fall off since Daytona happened. I mean, they were there were times where they had pace, like I know it like most like the sprint races that IMSA had throughout the season, they did have pace. And I mean, some of the enduros they did have pace, but it's just like I don't know. They kind of just weren't there for the most part. I mean, even at like the last race of the season, Petit Le Mans, they weren't particularly there either. So the verdict for Meyershank Racing is going to be did not beat the allegations. I have a note card, but it's like it's so bright you can't even see it.
actually, for this recording, what I actually might do is for some stuff on our socials, I might actually save this as a video too and make some clips out of this. We'll see. But
We need to add sound effects or something like the loud, extremely loud, incorrect buzzer sound. Don't beat the allegations.
I can do that. Okay. This is gonna be a fun one to edit. Because for those of you that don't know, on the Chicanery, I am entirely responsible for the editing and sort of production side. So I think I will be having some fun with the edit this week. Alrighty. So next up, we have Roman Grosjean. This is a very fun one, actually.
I already know what
So
I'm gonna say, but
yeah, I was just about to say we'll run through the list of some of the issues here. Needless to say, 2023 started off promisingly, but very, very quickly turned into a year to forget in IndyCar. Um, and needless to say, let's be blunt, there were just lapses of talent that were blamed on basically external factors. And then, I mean, and I guess that kind of falls under just Roman Grosjean, broadly speaking, being, well, frankly, Roman Grosjean. Asking the question of did he beat the allegations? Oh, absolutely not. Of course he didn't. I mean, it's Roman Grosjean. Well, you should be told, at the best of times, you're not beating those allegations, given the way his career has broadly panned out. But certainly not this year. Absolutely not. Did not beat the allegations. And I suspect that's what you're going to say.
yeah, I'm gonna say no. He did not beat the allegations at all. Better luck next season. However, some of it might be because, I don't know, because we have talked about this before, because of the fact that he was at Andretti and he switched from being at Dale Coyne Racing and went to Andretti, which is obviously a lot bigger team and different environment or whatever. And that might have been to do with why his season just wasn't all that great. Some of it also, because there was a lot of talk about this anyways, knowing because everybody knows that his stint in Andretti sucked. It was horrible. And some of it was like, okay, new team, whatever, the team environment's different. And then also some of it was like, well, he happens to be one of those drivers that likes their car set up a very specific way. And if it's not set up a very specific way, it's very hard for him to perform well. So could have been that. Most of it's just like he he will have like these weird moments where he just it's just a lapse of talent, brain fade, whatever you want to call it. And it's just like, what happened? Like, why? Why did you do this? What are we doing here? And some of that's just like on him. Like, so part of it's like maybe it's just an environment thing, could be, but most of it I feel like is just a Roman Grosjean issue. And that being said, did not beat the allegations.
Yeah, not even close. Um, so let's looking at the list. Next up is particularly the Scuderia Ferrari Formula One team.
And
And
I
this
specifically specified Ferrari and F1 because they are doing well in the World Endurance Championship, won Le Mans even. But for whatever reason, on the F1 side, it's just, I don't know. It's, who knows? I mean, maybe it's AF Corsa carrying the brand on like the sports car side, but I don't know.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a complex one, because you look at the face of this issue. I mean, you had strategy issues that probably cost it race wins. You had driver issues that probably cost race wins. And then certainly, I think the biggest shot that the Ferrari team had at race wins was, certainly in the first part of the season. Now, of course, Carlos Sainz, would end up winning a Grand Prix, but it feels like there were some wins certainly left on the table. But then when you considering just absolute dog and pony show that was this team last year, and then the fact that things have ostensibly calmed down a little bit on the media side. Bonato has been sent to whatever the Italian equivalent of a gulag is. Um, and Fred Vasseur is in. He meshes really, really well with Charles, particularly. It feels like, all things considered, it could have been worse. For my NFL fans and the listeners, this feels like when, a couple of years ago, the Lions went like 2-14, and yet that somehow felt like the best season that they had had in a while, just because of a change in kind of general locker room mentality. And that's kind of what I feel like here. So I'm not this is one of those ones where did they beat the allegations? No. But being a just categoric failure, I don't think so. So this for me feels like kind of a one to watch, if you will. So I don't know what you think about that, but
For me, I'm just gonna say we're gonna put an asterisk next to it and say, yeah, potential fraud, but at the same time, they kind of are making some progress. So I'm not too inclined to just be like flat out, just like X didn't beat the allegations at all.
I have to figure out what sound effect I'm going to use for that.
Meh.
Alrighty. Anyway, so now next we have the Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan, or is it Lanigan, Letterman? I can never remember which order the L's
It's
go in.
Letterman Lanigan.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the RLL BMW GTP team. So this was oh boy.
I mean,
uh
a roller coaster to say the least.
yeah, I mean many memes, heck, just even on this podcast, have been made about the absolute nightmare that was Daytona. It figured like this is going to turn into just a lost season entirely. But then it kind of wasn't. They ended up scoring the most podiums on all the GTP teams, and they got faster. Heck, even just between Daytona to Sebring, we saw a significant pickup in pace. But then you had, just meaning granted amongst GTP broadly, Petit Le Mans was kind of a sloppy race, but BMWs particularly so. So yeah, like you said, just kind of all over the place.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if because I know Daytona, obviously disastrous, complete nightmare, absolutely forgettable race. Talked about it several times before, and honestly, even to this day, I just can't get over just how bad it was. And I mean, they were in the trenches. It just basically looked like there was no hope for them. Absolutely no hope for them whatsoever. They were absolutely toast. Then they managed to get a podium at Sebring. Granted, one of their cars actually didn't make it the whole race, so they at least finished with one car, which is that's a step in the right direction. And they won at the Glen again after the whole thing with Porsche Penske and their skid block. And then I don't even know, like Petit Le Mans, I don't know if again, the race was just very sloppy for them, and I don't know if that was because it's BMW and there is some level of sloppiness you have to expect with them, or if whatever. I mean, they got very sloppy with the pit lane penalties, and some of it's like, well, I wonder how their race would have gone if they hadn't have gotten those penalties, because that did severely impact their race negatively for them. So I'm kind of like, well, I mean, I don't know. Hopefully next season is a little bit better. To be honest, I'm gonna shovel this with the Ferrari F1 team as well and say one to watch, because I can't flat out say that they completely beat the allegations because of, again, the little moments of, you know, sloppiness that they had throughout the season and even at the season finale. But it wasn't also they weren't always terrible with every race. And then they are also joining the World Endurance Championship in hypercar. So for all intents and purposes, things could go wrong there or and be perfectly fine in IMSA, or the whole thing is switched and it is perfectly fine in the World Endurance Championship and they are terrible in IMSA. So I'm gonna say asterisk one to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you had to ask me this question right after Daytona, I would have been like, absolutely not. Get these fools out of here. But given the way the season turned around, I am found myself pleasantly surprised, but not completely convinced. So yeah, definitely a one to watch.
Meh.
Alrighty, next is the Chip Ganassi Racing '01 Cadillac team. This is another kind of oh boy, you know, uh, to phrase it the way you would put it, very much win it or bin it. Um, Either they will be devastatingly quick and nobody can touch that car, or somebody's gonna stuff it in the Armco basically immediately. Um, yeah, just again, kind of all over the place. But this one is mostly down to the drivers. Now, granted, the car did like barbecuing itself periodically, which is suboptimal. But
And
yeah,
in the worst possible places for it to happen too. Like I think the car even caught on fire like during a practice or qualifying session at Le Mans, of all places for that to happen.
yeah, not great. Um, the funny thing is, coming into the start of the year, if you had to pose this question, I'd be like, well, of course not. What do you mean fraud watch? Because all the Cadillacs. I mean, Cadillac was very successful during the DPI era. So much so that IMSA tried a few times to nerf them, and it didn't really work right up until the very end of that chassis life cycle. So if you had eggs in the beginning, I would have been like, you're stupid. No. But given the way this went, I'm not so sure. This may be a very much did not beat the allegations, I'm thinking. Um,
I mean, compared to
because
the other Cadillacs, I'm gonna say no.
yeah, exactly. Because the other ones were broadly speaking more reliable and more consistently quick. Um, I'm not quite sure why the 01 particularly seemed to really like setting itself on fire. Somebody should probably look into that. And particularly look into Chip Ganassi racing. Maybe they're doing something funky like Meyer Shank was, and that's why. But
It's
but
sort of
yeah,
that
no.
meme where it's like I bring a sort of might spontaneously combust vibe at a moment's notice to the World Endurance Championship and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship that Chip Ganassi Racing don't really like.
Yeah, that is actually probably the perfect way to sum that up. So yeah, relative to the other Cadillacs, absolutely did not beat the allegations. Go away. We'll see you next year.
Next up, we have IMSA and IndyCar Race Control.
Oh, sweet flipping Christ. I Where do you even begin? Between the way IndyCar race control doing yellow flags, basically waiting for everybody to basically pit cycle before doing it, which is still just about one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
I mean, to
The
be honest, I don't know if maybe that's like less of a race control issue or more of like an IndyCar issue because it might just be it's an IndyCar issue and that is just one of the things in their rule books and all race control does is supposed to enforce those rules that IndyCar has and it's like it's obviously a very stupid rule allowing people to pit before throwing a yellow
hmm
but I mean, IndyCar Race Control is absolutely they're still not off the hook. They are still culprits because there have been several things that they've done throughout the 2023 season. I mean, they've even things they've done last season, but 2023 was particularly egregious for them with several things that they've done, whether it be, that or being highly inconsistent with their
hmm
rulings and whether it be letting people jump the start at a lot of races because that was a big thing that people got mad at. That I've seen several people throughout multiple races throughout the season sound off on social media was how they let a lot of drivers jump the start at the beginning of races or on restarts and they just don't do anything. Not even bothering to like look at it any further. They just don't do anything at all.
hmm
So
Yeah, it got so bad that even NASCAR felt obligated to cover their ass about the restart zones. Because about the last 6 races of the season, they were like, "Yeah, we can't have this," and they put out a memo to all the teams about, "Okay, well, you do this, you're going to get a penalty." And particularly Xfinity, a lot of drivers fell foul of that. There, Cup wasn't an issue so much, but yeah, it's just like I said, it's kind of all over the place. Yeah, and definitely with enforcement of rules, Portland was actually a big one where we really saw that come to a head with Pelot not getting penalized for shoving.
It was
Who was that?
Ryan
Was that
Hunter
Newgarden?
Ray.
Oh, was that Ryan Hunter Ray? I couldn't remember if it was him or Newgarden, but yeah, off of the circuit when he really should have, and somebody else for in basically that same spot for what could, I think, be classed more as a racing incident, got a fat penalty for basically the same thing. But
There
yeah,
was like
that
a
was
bunch of things that happened at Portland that was kind of weird. Like it was that. There was also like I think they people were mad at them because they didn't penalize Alex Palou, I think, for like
hmm
blocking or something like that. But then like
yeah,
a
that's
few
what it
laps
was.
prior, they
Uh-huh.
nailed somebody else. I think it was Kirkwood. And
Yes, it
then
was.
they also again the same issue again with the pit cycles and letting people pit before throwing a yellow. And then this time it was completely egregious because it was one driver that they let pit before throwing a yellow. And then that's when
Yeah.
everybody I mean, that's when everybody probably saw it was bad because that right there is the most obvious thing that it was bad because it's like it's one driver and because like it was happening the whole season. But really it stood out just because again it was one driver and the previous times that it had happened it was usually like a whole group of people that were pitting, so it was kind of like you could kind of push it underneath the rug a little bit, kind of brush it aside and be like, okay, well maybe it's not that bad. No, that was horrible.
Yeah, it's if as far as I'm concerned, it is basically the one and I think the only time that Graham Rahal has been justified in his bitching because he sounded off about it quite aggressively post race. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't like you, but I
There was a lot of bitching at that race from a lot of drivers. It was that or most of it was them like bitching about like lap traffic during like qualifying and stuff like that and during
yeah.
the race. It's like some of it I'm like, okay, I get the frustration. I get it, but at the same time I'm kind of like, well, like you kind of just have to get around them. Like
Yeah, exactly. Some of it absolutely the frustration was perfectly justified, but I mean most of it, I mean it's just racing drivers grumbling and being racing drivers.
Roman Grosjean in particular was
Yes.
throwing his hands up and shouting at people or whatever.
Yeah, because actually didn't maybe that was last year, but I swear there's some fairly recent footage of him getting very grumpy and flipping somebody the bird. I don't It might have been last year. But I do seem to very distinctly remember that and being like, "Oh my goodness, he's being very French right now." But yeah, so IndyCar race control, absolutely not. Truth be told, they were on my naughty list after whatever that nonsense was with effectively IndyCar's version of a green white checkered after the 500 or at the end of the 500. It's like bugger off. And they did not beat the allegations in the entirety of the season. But then I guess on the other side of the other race control that we are grumpy at, IMSA race control. And truth be told, that's isolated to just the way that they handle yellows mostly. It's like we do not need a full course yellow for one solitary piece of debris in one singular corner when you have, laps that are, you know, 2 minutes long, two and change minutes long.
It's like we need like either it's oh my god, it bothers me so much. It's like
It's like
either implement local cautions or do virtual safety cars or something. I don't know. Whatever this current method of going about throwing an entire full course yellow, the whole track is yellow because oh, there's a piece of debris, a piece of bodywork in turn three, or a tire carcass in turn three, or something like that. And then it's like everybody has to slow down and the field gets bunched up again. It's like no. And then some
no.
even their callings were just in my opinion, not really the best, like kind of just weird, for lack of a better term. Like even at Petit Le Mans, as much as again I don't like Wayne Taylor Racing, they're ops to me, but not giving Pippo to Ronnie a penalty for that last incident that happened was kind of just like, uh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, they kind of all over the place too. With calls, because yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I don't much care for like you, I don't much care for Wayne Taylor Racing either. But I saw that and I'm like, that's got to be a fat penalty for Durrani, and then just nothing. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now, I guess. And it's just as simple as that. But but yeah, no, it's yeah, they didn't beat the allegations either, because I've been getting increasingly irritated with IMSA race control over the last probably about 3 or 4 years. I've been getting tired of them in the way, they handle yellows and yeah, even some officiating. Um, because actually another good example, Sebring, when yeah, the one of the BMWs annihilated the Corvette, that should have been a penalty. That should have been so clear a penalty. And just nothing. Nothing ever came of it. And I was like, seriously,
They
guys?
also had a screw up moment or at the Glen because there was at the beginning of it. I remember apparently they threw a green for the GTP field, and then apparently within like a few moments of the green for the GTPs, one of them wrecked. I think it was a BMW. Farfus, not shocking at all,
No.
binned the BMW within the first few moments of the first lap of the race. And then they had to, I think they needed to like clean it up, obviously. And before they even got to doing that, they were about to throw a green flag for like the GT cars. And it's like they almost created a whole travesty. Like they luckily caught themselves on the screw up before anything drastic happened, but that was almost a disaster.
Yeah, yeah. I like I said, I don't understand. It feels like it's gotten really, really bad this year. Like I said, I mentioned before being a little grumpy with IMSA race control and sort of the way that they handle this stuff. But like I said, it's like they got really bad this year, and I'm not quite sure what the cause of that is, because of course,
It could be the
Daytona,
fact that they're owned by NASCAR. I don't know.
eh,
I want
eh,
to say maybe that's it, but
possibly. But yeah, because I was super excited, testing at Daytona, seeing some of the new cars, hearing the Mustang, seeing new Corvette, seeing the new Aston Martin, and then going, oh wait, this is probably going to be an absolute nightmare of a race in January, and that shouldn't be tempering my excitement for the Daytona 24, and
I
basically at the
mean, to be
start of the
honest, for
second
me,
week.
it doesn't. I'm just like, disaster or not, I'll be there.
Trust me, don't get me wrong, I will too, but I'm already bracing myself for a bit of a nightmare, and I shouldn't be doing that in the second week of December as of when we record
I mean,
this.
there's a lot of cars on the entry list anyways, so I
Hmm.
mean, and then obviously there's so many drivers from different backgrounds, and some drivers are more like aggressive than others. So, yeah, a disaster might be imminent.
Yeah, we'll see. It's all in how, well, it's all in how they handle it. But nope, neither race control beat the allegations for me this year. So try again next year.
It
Eh,
did not beat the allegations.
no, no, no. So, okay, and speaking of try again next year, the Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team. Oh boy, you know, it's been a rough last few years for that team. They didn't nail the car concept. They were doing that, zero side pod thing, which actually reminds me a lot of when was it the MP418 that Adrian Newey was doing that size zero thing? I think it was. I might interject with an edit here to correct myself or not. But yeah, so zero side pods, completely different aerodynamic philosophy to basically everybody else. Didn't work. They were finding some pace, thought they had unlocked the key to that car, said that they had made some progress in testing. Then we come to Bahrain and it's bad. It's really bad. If anything, it looks like they went backwards over where they were in the same place in preseason in 2022. Then, we roll around and to the first race of the season, and it's just the car is just slow. Then, cadre of car upgrades, and it doesn't really go anywhere. And then, never mind, slow pit stops, crummy strategy. It was just bad this year. For me, frankly, they didn't beat. Um, they are still on the fraud list, and that will continue until they fix something. I don't know what. Well, it's the car is really what they need to fix. Namely, if the car can be fast enough, then they can just outperform crummy strategy. But they, until that happens, they are staying very firmly planted on this list, and I will hear nothing to the contrary.
I mean, I don't. It's just I feel like putting Mercedes on here really shouldn't be like that controversial because even like Mercedes fans were saying, "Oh, they're on fraud watch," especially after like one particular race. And I mean, most of my frustrations with them stemmed from the fact that it seemed like every other weekend they were talking about how, "Oh yeah, we brought some updates to the car. We got some updates," and then it seemed like said updates in massive air quotes that I'm doing that you cannot see that the upgrades didn't do shit. So I'm like, did you actually upgrade the car or did you just like are you just saying you upgraded the car to like give people false hope or something like that? Or maybe the upgrades just weren't enough as expected. I don't know. Some of it is also like they also do too much of like fumbling pit stops and strategies too during the race and I'm like I don't know. I don't know why they do that. There have been several times throughout this year where they have either fumbled, like mainly fumbling podiums and good positions, good finishing positions because they messed up a pit stop, or mainly it was like the strategy somehow they went wrong on the strategy somewhere along the line in the race, and then it's just like week in and week out for them. So I'm also going to say no, Mercedes F1 absolutely did not beat the fraud watch allegations. Come again next year.
Yeah, and I'll to your point, I'll need to go over particularly qualifying times and look at the percentage delta, particularly when each major set of upgrades was introduced, because much to your point, it feels like they didn't really move. So, like I said, I maybe in some point here I'll run some numbers and see quite what the reason for that is, because, Silverstone, it felt like they had maybe made some progress. 'Cause, I mean, Lewis put it on pole, but that was basically the only glimmer of hope all season, really, for this team and for that car. But yeah, nope, not beating the allegations. Well, we'll see you next year. Um, and sticking with is actually funny enough is with their customer team, well, one of the customer teams, McLaren. And this was basically the complete opposite. They had done some work, um, and actually at the reveal for that car, Zach Brown and Andrea Stella were like, "Yeah, this car is garbage. It didn't do what we were hoping. We didn't make the gains that we were hoping with just doing like wind tunnel testing and what have you. We'll see what it's like at Bahrain." And then it was trash at Bahrain in preseason. And then the first race of the year, it was also garbage. In fact, I think that was a double DNF, if I remember correctly. Um,
I think it was because I'm pretty sure something drastic happened with them at the beginning of the season. That's why I even put them on the list, anyways. I'm pretty
mhm.
sure it was like DNFs or something.
Yeah, I seem to think it was. And then it was looking pretty hopeless. It was looking like another year lost at sea. And it was looking like, sacking Daniel Ricciardo. It was looking like, okay, well, clearly that wasn't the problem. And then the car got fast. Again, same thing. It seemed like they really turned it around at Silverstone, and the car has just been rocket ship, well, comparatively speaking. All season, consistently third quickest car on the grid, even some races where they thought that car would be slow and then it wasn't. Um, they're off the list. I am pleasantly surprised. Now, I want to see them sustain this momentum into next year. Clearly, they have got a concept that works, and they will have the off season to truly adapt that as opposed to basically hodgepodging the existing chassis. But no, well done, boys. Enjoy the off season.
Did beat the allegations. You can put in a little, insert the little, like, I don't know, check mark sound effect.
Yeah, it'll be the maybe I'll see if I can find the prices right in the ding button when they do that. That might be what I do for the positives, but yeah, no, I'm pleasantly surprised with how that went. Um, so I guess moving on there. And this is it. I'm so even we've got another F1 team specific one underneath it, but I see particularly a name right above that. And so we're gonna do that first. I would like you to explain this one a little bit. You've got Jamie Chadwick on as a part of this list for a fraud watch. So please explain that to me, friend.
Well, part of it was just because some of it's like a personal beef I have with her, just because she did make like some kind of transphobic statements, I guess, at
Yeah.
one point when it was about like regarding like women being an F1 or something like that. And it was just like it rubbed me the wrong way. So there's that. Some of it was also because she did move to Indy Lights. Indy Next is what it's called now. And it seemed like she didn't do that well compared to at least like the other rookies in the Indy Next field and even just like in general. And part of that, I'm like, okay, maybe this is like once again like rookie being a rookie, and that's why it didn't go so well for her. Then some of it's like it just kind of is confusing to me at the same time because she was champion of the W series. So I'm like, okay, like it's not like open wheel racing is like too crazy or like too like foreign of a concept for her. So I'm like, I feel like maybe to some degree, like those skills should translate over to Indie Lights, Indie Next, and that was why I'm like, okay, like I mean, she mostly just like stayed around like mid pack or like lower throughout most of the season, um, and compared to like her other teammates at Andretti was usually like typically always in the back. And I'm like, what's happening here? Like, is this like I just couldn't figure it out personally. So I was just like, I don't know. I mean, I get the W series. I have my own beefs and gripes with the W series and even some with Formula One Academy in a way. That's a whole other discussion for a whole other day, but that's
That children is what we
basically
call
my thoughts.
foreshadowing. But yeah, so to be fair, much like you, I had my, kind of grumbles and gripes with the W series for a considerable amount of time. And so maybe I was, as a result, was overcorrecting and certainly personal biases there. Um, just because that series I don't really feel like was competently run like at all. But yeah, I had actually, truth be told, I had completely forgotten about the Indie Next campaign. And some of this is, and I don't know if this might be a spicy statement, this might not, but truth be told, I guess this is the episode for it. Um, I never really thought she is all that fast to begin with. I'm just talking about a pure natural talent. It's been talked about, beaten to death. Before, certainly, minority drivers, be it ethnically or women in motorsports certainly don't get the funding opportunities. Certainly, actually, if you're curious about that, go find the episode that the main pod did. We did with Ryan Vargas. back in the fall, and we talk a lot about Rev and Drive for Diversity. If you're curious about some of that stuff, Brian does a great job, talking about it and laying out why stuff like that is important. But to this point, you know, I have questioned sort of, natural talent to begin with. If you watch, some of the other stuff and some of the promotional stuff, certainly, she's handy with a road car and like that's cool. But certainly at a proper professional racing level, I have been suspect of Jamie actually for quite some time. Um,
I mean, part of it
and
might be just because like the competition, like the field, how competitive the field was in the W
mhm.
series, it could have just been like the field is just not that competitive, and that's why she was able to excel so much.
And that was the feeling that I had after she won, because you talk about depth of talent in the W series, and well, the extent of the quote unquote depth of talent was her basically. Um, so yeah, so that alone is enough to have her on fraud watch for me. But yeah, I had actually it had I guess I had managed to block out of my mind some of the well, for the sake of our skin, we'll call them transphobic dog whistles uh there, and yeah, that just solidifies it for me. So yes, did not beat the allegations very firmly.
And
But
now we're getting back to another F1 team, as mentioned. This time it's Haas.
I this is another one where I feel like I have had personal gripes with this team for a very long time. The first couple of years in Formula One, they were doing well. They were making some progress, and the wide track regulations got brought in 2017, I think that was. And it really killed the momentum of this team, like completely. Um, and then this is to say nothing of the absolute frauds that they let invest in this team, Rich Energy, speaking of which, Bad Santa was back to tweeting about Formula One just the other day. Um, about how he's fast in, basically an ex demo car. It's like, yes, I too can
And
lie
then
about
he's
things
saying
on
that
the
he
internet.
deserves a super license, an FIA super license because of that. It's like, do you realize that is not how FIA super license work? You can't
Hmm.
just be like, oh yeah, I'm faster than X, Y, and Z drivers, so that means I'm deserving of a fucking super license. Like, no.
Yeah, and actually, I'm gonna go look up that tweet here for a second because he asserts that he was faster than a couple of
Daniel
drivers.
Ricciardo, Lance Stroll is what
Yeah,
he
and I was
said.
just
I'm
about to
pretty
say,
sure.
yeah,
It's
I'm
like, for
pretty sure
one,
that.
it's actually not that hard to be faster than Lance Stroll. I'm sorry, but that is a low bar to clear. That is a low bar to clear. That's low hanging fruit. Daniel Ricciardo, that's more of a challenge, but also not that hard in my opinion. But
Yeah, and the other thing, and part of why I was thinking, because I'm gonna need to go back and look, because I'm looking at that Renault and it's still got the Infinity badging. I don't think Daniel, outside of some demo stuff, promotional stuff for when it was still Renault, I don't believe he ever raced that car. Again, I'll have to go back and look and see exactly what year it is, but the Infinity branding makes me think this is going to be 2017, 2016. And I don't believe he ever drove that. And I don't think Lance Stroll did either, to be fair. So it's like, okay, congratulations, you're faster than two drivers. That again, I'll go back and I'll fact check myself, but I don't think they ever drove that car. Um, so it's like whatever. And then then again moving back to Haas,
truth be
the year.
told, you could honestly just wait until that tweet ends up getting hit with a community note because I'm sure it will.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure if he's full of it, yeah, he'll get community noted. But yeah, and then Haas with Urakali, later, highly ironic, the quotes American team effectively selling itself to the Kremlin. But yeah, no, this team is just a mess and like constantly. Günther Steiner, I mean, yeah, he's kind of funny, but that only goes so far. This team is a consistent dysfunctional mess, honestly. Then they always bet the farm on one upgrade package the entire year, and it never really works. Like they have some pace. It's been the same thing since 2017. They have some pace early in the year, then it tails off. Then they introduce something mid-year that usually doesn't work, and then the team falls to the back of the grid and usually ends up being the slowest car in the field come Abu Dhabi, and then rinse and repeat for the following year, and that has not changed. It's like, and I know that a lot of it is because Gene Haas is just, well, he's a skinflint. He's cheap. He refuses to give this team the proper investment that it needs. It's like much like how we're doing, sell the team stuff with like the Washington Commanders and the Anaheim Angels with Artie Moreno. It's like just sell the freaking team. It's like clearly you don't want to spend the money, so just like go away, go build CNC machines or something. It's like Jesus.
And because
Like
of that, part of me is like, I wish K-Mag would just leave Haas altogether. So I'm like,
yes,
he should just go leave Haas in the dust and go back to racing like sports cars or something because he was actually pretty good. And it's like, I feel like he's wasting his talent. I mean, I know he is like getting up there in age and he has like two kids and a family and everything like that. So maybe like it's not as viable and it's not really something that you want to do at that point in your life when you do have those other factors. But I'm like, I feel like he's wasting his talent just being in Haas, waffling around at the back of the freaking grid weekend after week out and have the team. I mean, Gunther Steiner, yeah, he's funny, but that's because like he's very vulgar at the same time, and he's like he also yells at people and he's like swearing at them in German, like and all that, and it's like leave this team, please, because this is horrible.
yeah, I completely agree. Him and Hulk both. Honestly, I feel like their time would be better utilized doing other things besides toiling around in a crappy Formula One car. Yeah, and I like you said, I really wish they would like I said, leave. It was so cool having K Mag in sports cars, especially for those couple of years that Yen was still driving as well. So to have, basically father and son on the grid together was super sick. Um, but yeah, no, this team, it's not even. I think this goes beyond fraud watch. This team just sucks. Like it sucks so much, and it's
Congratulations, you suck so much that you're the suckery can't even the fraud watch list cannot even hold the magnitude of just how bad this team sucks.
yeah, exactly. So, sticking to the theme, and answering these questions genuinely, no. Beat the allegations, no. But are they ever going to? I don't
No,
think so.
probably not.
Yeah,
They're just
exactly.
not that serious. Like some of
Yeah,
these teams and drivers, I can say for a fact that, did they beat the allegations? Maybe not. But depending upon, again, how serious they are, and if they decide to get serious, then I'm kind of like, well, maybe it won't stay this way forever and it won't be like stagnant. But Haas, I truthfully don't see that happening, especially since you said Gene Haas doesn't seem like he even wants to be bothered with investing money into the team. It's like, well, if that's the case, then no, they're never going to beat the allegations.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how you ended up with Rich Energy and Urakali as title sponsors because they were probably doing more funding of the team than Haas, which is just than Gene Haas himself, which is just incredible. It boggles my mind, genuinely. Almost can't find words for how bad that team is and how poorly run the team is. That's really the big thing. You have some talented folks on that team, but when the owner doesn't care, well, it's hard to get anywhere. But anyway, enough of that rant. Moving on. We have Benjamin Peterson on this list. So I understand why you put him on the list because oh boy, the beginning of this season was rough. Um, but then it turned out kind of okay, all things considered.
I mean, I'm
S
kind of glad that it turned out okay for him because, to be honest, at first, at least like at St. Pete and then like following races at the beginning of the season, I was like, this, like, it just, to me, it just wasn't that good of a look to sign him at first, in my opinion, because he didn't finish too particularly well in the Indy Lights championship the previous year. So I'm kind of like, this is just a pay driver. Like,
Mm.
signed him because, of course, there's plenty of times where teams just sign drivers because they have financial backing and it brings finances to the team and they need it. So that's why I'm like, okay, he's a pay driver. That's the only reason why he was signed. But pleasantly surprised, he actually can do well. I mean, at the 500, he was doing well. He's during like the practices and qualifying. I mean, I thought the flight cars were illegal when they were practicing at the 500. So I'm like, they were putting up pretty good speeds and pretty good
Yeah,
times.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, much like you, I was not convinced by him being signed. I'm like, because I can't remember exactly where he finished in his Indy Lights campaign, but I seem to think it was not particularly high up the list.
I feel
Let's
like I want to say it was like fifth or something, fifth or sixth, maybe.
yeah, yeah, let's have a look. Again, consummate professional here. So we we'll see what happens here. So let's head over to Wikipedia because I think it's honestly more useful than racing references half the time. Fight me. But yes, you were indeed correct on speaking of Price is Right rules. You would win because he finished P5, and which is interesting because having a quick look, um, he actually, even though he scored more points, interestingly, he actually finished one position lower in the standings than he did in 2021. He was actually P4 then. So 2 years of kind of results, just to, kind of bring home the point. Yeah, it seemed like an absolute waste of signing. And that, yes, as per usual, it was all about money. And certainly at St. Pete, it looked like that was exactly what was going to happen. And then, yeah, like I said, his season improved quite considerably, quite quickly thereafter.
I mean, don't
So,
get me wrong. Like, don't get me chopped. Fourth and fifth results, that's not terrible. It could be worse. However, it just was kind of like again, I wasn't convinced and was kind of like rubbed me a specific way because I'm like, you signed somebody that finished fifth in the Indy Lights championship versus somebody that won the whole championship and was pretty consistent throughout the year. So I was kind of just like, this again, is this a serious signing? Maybe, maybe not. But ultimately, he did beat the allegations. Congratulations.
yeah, I was just about to say, yeah, he absolutely did beat him. And, certainly my grumbles, are less so with finishing fourth and fifth, but just that, yes, because money, a driver that finished fourth and fifth gets signed over one half the time that actually wins, Indy Lights, Indy Next, if they don't have, gargantuan cash reserves, floating around somewhere. But certainly in a vacuum, fourth and fifth is not bad. But yes, he beat the allegations. And let's see who we got on the next on the list. George Russell. Oh boy. I understand why you put him on this list. Particularly because he grumbled a lot about team orders. Like actually he does that constantly and I hate it so much.
That, and
Um
then there was a time, I don't know what race it was. It might have been Spa or the Hungarian Grand Prix during a practice or like qualifying, and he ran into Lewis for whatever reason. And it was
mhm.
just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and that's always kind of characterized George for me. Certainly very, very quick, but he's prone to a bit of an accident and usually kind of a clumsy one. Um, on as for, you know, fraud watch allegations, I don't think so personally. I still think he is miles, don't get me wrong. I love Valtteri Bottas. He's, seems like he's a really cool, really chill guy. And well, truth be told, his Bottas calendars are pretty great. But I enjoy them quite a bit. But Bottas was just slow. Like pure plain and simple, certainly in his time at Mercedes. He was just not particularly quick. I mean, it's very much kind of, Sergio Perez-esque, Bottas may, qualify on pole or whatever, but then he sinks to, sixth by the end of T1 or sunk to sixth. And George doesn't do that. So certainly in the context of former Lewis Hamilton teammates. I don't think anybody's gonna, quite reach the heights of, Rosberg, who, well, annoys me for a completely different set of reasons. Um, I don't think anybody on George is not that high, but he's not, like I said, he's not Bottas either. So for me, no. But I'd be interested to know what you think, given that you were the one that put him on this list to begin with.
I mean, really, it was that. It was just like the beginning of the season stuff, and just me getting like overall annoyed with some of the stuff he does, some of his antics. Like some of the reason why I put some of these again, some of these
Hmm.
teams, drivers, whatever on this list is some of it is like my personal like annoyance with things that they've done, and then some of it is also like how good their results were and stuff like that. But maybe he's not really worthy of fraud watch. Maybe I'm just saying it just because again, I have personal gripes with him. And honestly, like I mean, there were other drivers that I'm like, maybe they need to be on fraud watch, maybe not. Uh, Checo, I considered putting on the list as well, but I'm like, maybe not, just because I mean, while he does have those occasional moments of brain fade, and he just does things that are just like, again, makes you turn into the meme with like question marks over your head. He can put up decent results when he wants to. So
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so no, George Russell beats the allegations for now. Because I'm sure he'll do something stupid and irritating next season that'll have me feeling the exact same way. Because, it's worth noting, as we're reading this notes, there were no bullet points listed under George. But like I said, I understood exactly why you put him on this list because I feel the same way. But looking at it objectively, no. So beats the allegations. Congratulations. Don't screw it up. Now, next on the list is, oh boy, it's Nick DeVries. Yeah, I understand exactly why you put him on this list. Now, I will maintain that I do not believe, well, there are a couple of factors at play here. A, Helmut Marko is an idiot. And I think by proxy, he gets fraud watch. Um,
I
just
have
sort of
no
by,
problem with that. He can go
y-
on the list too.
yeah, so, okay, so that's a quick little emergency entry put in. Helmut Marko, fraud watch. And then I'll insert the buzzing noise here. Um,
I mean, to be
but
honest, it's just like I'm not entirely sure, and I'm sure other people might feel the same way, why he even signed Nick in the first place. Especially if why were you going to sign somebody that you had no intention of letting them stay there the whole season?
Yeah, I mean, because Helmut Marko is, I mean, he's prone to whims. We've seen this happen, time and time again. He was part of the mid-season promotions demotions at Red Bull, but then, I mean, how that after Albon and Gasly basically got stacked, it was how the anti-Red Bull agenda reached kind of a fever pitch, and like I said, would have been 2018, 2019. And so basically, Helmet has been let run amok on the AlphaTauri team, the B team, but for no good reason at all. And that's exactly what happened here. Because, and this is, I think I talked about this last week in the episodes. Yeah, when we were talking about the F1 season review. Um, so I guess those were episodes actually released earlier this week. But anyway, time is but a construct. Um, Nick was within the Mercedes driver pool umbrella, however you choose to visualize that, for a while. There's a reason why he never got a race seat with either at Mercedes or he did at Williams just as a stand-in because Albon tested positive for COVID, so on and so forth. And that drive was good in a vacuum if you don't look at any other external factors. That drive was done, that was at Monza, a track that Williams, because that car has just acres of straight line speed. Williams, even if they are dead last in every other race in the season, they usually finish in the points at Monza. And anybody with, two eyes and frankly lukewarm IQ could have could have understood that. Except Helmut Marko, apparently. And it's so dumb. Like while, certainly in the context of F1, clearly, Nick, that is fraud watch, obviously. But, he is still, he was F2 champion. He is very good in Formula E. He is back. He will be back next season with Mahindra in Formula E. He is a good driver. He is a talented driver. And to some extent, I do not believe he got a fair shake at Formula One, because the rumor has it that at basically what ended up being the canceled Imola weekend, that they were already looking to get rid of Nick. And that was what, round 4 of the calendar? Something like
I mean,
that?
I don't know specifically, but it was pretty early on, and I'm kind of just like, I mean, I initially had put him on the list because it just seemed like his performance was just not that great, especially when you compare it to like Liam Lawson being in the
Mhm.
car, and even like to be honest, maybe that's being a little bit too like again too harsh. Just because Liam Lawson is kind of like on a different level than even both DeFries and Ricardo. So I mean, maybe there's some of that, but it seems like he was kind of like the fall person for like Helmut Marko screw ups.
And that's exactly it. Because it's also worth noting that the AlphaTauri was dog slow at the beginning of the season too. Even Yuki wasn't really getting a whole lot out of the car. At the very start of the season, Liam was helped by a car that was both easier to drive and, well, faster. Now I'm not saying that, Nick was necessarily going to put that car in points even in an identical car, but like I said, how just garbage the AlphaTauri was to start the year certainly didn't help. So I do think fraud watch, but much like, Ferrari and some of the other ones, with an asterisk in this case. I think that is a fair assessment of Nick in his racing this year.
Meh.
But who we certainly don't need any asterisks for, Graham Rahal. I
Absolutely not.
This man makes me almost violently angry. um, I mean, there's a list. I mean, don't get me wrong. People have prayed for his downfall on, my Twitter timelines. I probably don't need to explain this one to the audience, but for those of you who might be new to these parts, um, Graham Rahal, the son of successful IndyCar driver, kart driver, as it would have been back then, and dealership magnate Bobby Rahal. And that is half the problem. He has been signed to his dad's team for like the majority of his career. I know his first couple seasons in Indy he was elsewhere, but like I said, the bulk of it he's been at the Rahal RLL team. And it's peak Nepo baby garbage, if I'm being perfectly honest. He's just complains constantly, because one of the things was he said that he had spent more time in the back of the AMR safety truck than with his family. And it's like
Yeah, and it's
90%.
like who's responsible for that? You.
I was
You
just
are
about to
responsible
say,
for that. You
yeah,
control that. You could easily decide. You know what? He didn't even need in my opinion, he didn't need that contract extension that he signed just a
no.
few months ago. It's like if you were just complaining about the fact that you again, skill issue on your half, by the way, that you spend more time in the IndyCar medical centers and seeing the AMR safety team more than you see your own wife, then guess what you could do? Retire. You could simply retire, hang it up. That's what
I
you
was,
could do.
I was
And
just
so I'm
about to
like,
say,
he will never leave that team, honestly. He will stay there. And to be honest, that's part of the reason why I cannot take RLL seriously to some
mm-mm.
extent because they keep letting him just there. And it's like, I get it. He's the team owner's son, but at the same time, it's like you're kind of wasting your time and kind of just like again, I just feel less and less inclined to take them seriously as a team because I'm like, okay, there are plenty of other people that you could sign. And then yeah, I get it. You had no problem axing like literally sacking Jack Harvey before the end of the season. But it's like, you know who else needs to be sacked? The Nepo baby, because he is entirely useless. I mean, yeah, he had like a moment of greatness at like the Indy Road Course and managed to get a podium. I think he got pole or whatever. But it's
Hmm.
like that was one race, and
And
that
it's worth
happened one time.
it's worth pointing out that he was leading that race quite comfortably and got hunted down by Scott Dixon, who was last at the end of after turn one, was last and pointing backwards. It's like you were leading comfortably. You should have locked that race down. So even honestly, that would have been enough if I didn't already, truth be told, not really like him. That would have been enough for me to put him on fraud watch
He
just for
complains a
that.
lot. He's like he and Roman Grosjean are over here having a contest of who can complain the most because they're like two of the two IndyCar drivers that complain the most. Maybe next season somebody else will also get in on the action and we'll have three people competing for whoever complains the most. But it's that bothers it pisses me off so much. It's like, oh my God, just shut up. He's kind of washed. And he's constantly getting outperformed by his teammates.
Hmm. Yeah, because he really got wrecked when Takuma Sato was at that team. Takuma Sato kicked his ass up, down, and
He
sideways.
looks even worse, honestly, now that Christian Lundgaard is there, because Christian Lundgaard is like carrying that team on
Hmm.
his back.
Yep. But no, my so officially on the fraud watch, no, he does not beat the allegations, not even close. However, I'm gonna quote Giles in Street Fighter 2. Go home and be a family man. Let Courtney go and be the breadwinner. She's actually fast and like
Be a
good at what she
stay-at-home
does.
dad.
Yes, she's good at that. So you let her go and kick ass in drag racing, and you can just look after the kids and the dogs. That's all you
They
need to
also
do.
were supposed to be, I'm pretty sure RLL was supposed to be entering in like a motorbikes or something. With like Ducati, and it's like you have all this other stuff going on and you still want
Hmm.
to like race for real. Like they're in motorbikes now. They're in IndyCar, they're in IMSA. It's like,
Given
do
that Trackhouse is
why?
also entering motorcycle racing, Trackhouse has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever, and that is just be faster than Rayall. but but yeah, no, Graham is so bad, and I will pray for the downfall of this team for as long as he is on this team. I go goodbye, go away. Um, so next up we have is Stingray Rob. This was, if I'm being perfectly honest, one of the worst rookie campaigns I think I've ever seen. Um, he didn't finish very many races, usually because, well, actually, I think all of those he bended on his own. I don't think there were any incidents where he got collected, and given how slow
I
he
think
was.
the only particular like incident I can think of that he might have gotten collected was St. Pete. I
Oh,
think
St. Pete and
that
maybe
whole pileup that
Texas.
happened,
Uh-huh.
I think he might have just been collateral damage in that.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think St. Pete, and the more I think about it, maybe Texas. But otherwise, every other race, yeah, he basically
Skill
just,
issue.
yeah, he bended on his own. And like I said, in what races he did finish, he finished just miles off the pace. Um, I don't know if it's just, rookie stuff, just IndyCar rookie things, because he finished P2 in the championship in Indy next, if I remember correctly, before making the jump.
He finished, I think, third in the Indy
Oh,
Lights
was it third?
championship. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Either second or third. I want to say it's third. And who finished second was Hunter McElroy.
You might be right. You pay more attention to the feeder series stuff than I do, so we will have a look and let's see. Ha! No, actually, I was right. It was second. Yep, in 2022 with Andretti Autosport, he finished P2.
Because that had me thinking that maybe that the reason why they signed him wasn't because it was a strictly like financial, pay driver type thing. I thought it was like, okay, maybe it's because I mean he finished second, so maybe he has some talent. Honestly,
No.
I would not have thought that that was the case, judging by his rookie season in IndyCar. I mean, honestly, I mean, at least compared to the other rookies, it's just not completely
Yeah,
forgettable rookie season.
yeah,
I
like I
mean, I know
said,
Kyle Kirkwood, his rookie season didn't go too well either, and kind of some of the same stuff happened, whether it be like getting caught up in random incidents or brain fade, whatever. But I'm like, I don't know. As
yeah,
much as his name is super cool and all that,
I love it.
I I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I have no clue what's going on here because, like I said, it is just such a bad rookie campaign. And like, don't get me wrong, I get it. Foyt is certainly not the juggernaut that it was even just a handful of years ago. But I just do not understand why this was that bad. Um, it just, yeah, I don't get it. And of course, I mean, like, let me be, of course, let's be clear. The skill ceiling is going to be a lot higher in IndyCar proper versus, USF 2000, the Formula Mazda or even Indy Next. But
I mean, I get even like maybe some of the expectation ceiling for him was a bit high because I know David
possibly
Malukas kind of had a huge breakout
he
like
did.
season his rookie year. Like he was damn good getting podiums even. So I'm like maybe some of it's because of that because when you do have other people on the same team and they happen to have either good rookie seasons or they're just in general decent, it's might be a lot harder. I feel like honestly, I don't know if he's gonna get re-signed with Dale Coyne or not. Honestly, there was a lot of speculation that he would have gone to Andretti and Andretti would have kept their four-car lineup, but they're not doing that. They're downsizing to three cars come next season. So I honestly feel like maybe kind of need like another year. Like if he's back in IndyCar next season, and we can see how his season plays out when he's not a rookie anymore, then I feel like I will be able to make a better assessment on what is actually going on.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no, definitely one more year. If next year sucks, then get out of here. Um, but yeah, but like I don't know. I want to be sympathetic, and to some extent I am, but not enough to even asterisk beating the allegations. It's just a solid no for me right now. So
It did not beat the allegations. Try
nope.
again next year.
Yep. And next up on the list, Stoffel the Waffle. Stoffel Van Dorn is on this list. Um, I guess championship hangover tinks was the reason why you
That's
put
what I
him.
was gonna say. Just like
Yeah.
championship slump or whatever was going on, because it seemed like this season was not too great for him.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that was what I figured was the reason why you had put him on. He's, I mean, I don't think Stoffel Van Dorn certainly needs any introduction, but yeah, I'm like I said, I'm gonna figure that it was just, rough year. Um and also potentially maybe the fact that also a different team as well. Potentially, so adjusting to the team dynamic because he was with, I guess not the season that just
He
passed,
was
but the
with
previous year with
last
Mercedes. Or
Yeah,
was it?
last season he was with Mercedes EQ or something, and then this season he's now with DS Penske,
Yeah.
Dragon Speed.
Yep, exactly, because Mercedes has decided to bugger off from Formula E, which I don't know. Maybe that should be a thing worth investigating because all the manufacturers have promptly fucked off, frankly, from Formula E, and I'm kind of curious as to why that is.
I
But
mean, there was some like when I was watching like some older like Formula E races, there were like manufacturers I didn't even know were in Formula E. Like I didn't know Audi was in Formula E at one point, and I
yep.
didn't know BMW was either, but they all just like noped out of there.
Yeah, no, I did. The Audi Apt team. I loved that team so much. And actually, I dug the BMW team too. But it was, I guess a quick, non sequitur before we move on. But especially certainly, 5, 6 years ago. Well, actually, honestly, longer than that. Kind of you know, Audi Audi super fan. So I do, following the Audi Formula One or Formula E team, not Formula One. I'm thinking about a couple years in the future. But yeah, following that team was super duper fun. Um, and then Daniel App got yeeted from the team, but well, that's a story for a different day. Um, but yeah, so I loved the Audi team, and then they left, and yeah, BMW left. Just like I said, a lot of the manufacturers have just they have just gone. We've got DS, we've got Nissan. Can't remember. Is Jaguar still milling about the Formula E grid? For whatever reason, I can't remember offhand.
I think so.
Yeah, and then you've got like Maserati and some other teams, but the OGs of Formula E are all long gone. But anyway, little story, little non sequitur aside. Um, yeah, no, I am. Like I said, I that's tough. I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
say
say
asterisk, honestly.
yeah, I was gonna say no, but with an asterisk. Championship hangover, a new team, and learning the dynamic of a new team. If we don't see any improvement in form next year, then I will assume, well, then it will be confirmed did not beat the allegations. But until then, well, we'll watch.
Meh.
But next up, we have Porsche Penske. Um, so I already have a very emphatic answer to that question, but we'll get to that in a second. I guess a quick run through. Didn't really do all that great in WEC. One
I mean, they got
sprint
a few
race.
podiums. Like I know Fuji, they got a podium, and Portimao, they got a podium. But overall, this season, their season in the World Endurance Championship was very much lackluster. Felt like I was
Hmm.
kind of, just sitting there waiting for them to do something, and they just kind of never did.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I was surprised by those couple of podiums that they got. Yeah, same thing. They well. They won the sprint races in IMSA, but that was basically it.
I
You
was
know,
inclined to honestly, like, even in the World Endurance Championship, the podiums that they got, I felt like even that felt like such a like drag, like just like felt like pulling teeth for them to even get
hmm
podiums, and it just kind of just sucked. And then IMSA, they didn't do like again sprint races. They did well, which is why I'm going to say that they were sprint race merchants this year in IMSA because sprint races they were on it. They were on top of it. They did well. However, when it came to the enduros, not so much.
yeah, no, not like remotely. Then they made some steps towards performance. With those, couple podiums and a couple of wins. But, much like I said, it feels like the entire field had a sloppy Petite, really. And they were, absolutely one of those. Petite Le Mans was just kind of a mess. Um,
Yeah, like I don't know. Petit Le Mans in general, I'm gonna say was just kind of a sloppy race for
mhm,
everybody. BMW and Porsche Penske in particular in the GTP field just happened to have sloppier races than everybody else. But
yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna say no. Because you and I have talked about this. I can't remember if it made it to the episode or if it was off mic, but when you have names like Porsche, which has, countless GT class wins, championships, and then overall victories in the top class. And a name like Penske, I mean, you've got basically a Penske team. You can find a Penske team in basically every major series for the past, like, this point, like 50 years in motorsports. So I thought that was going to be the racing equivalent of the Death Star, honestly. They were just gonna mop up the field and it was gonna just suck. It was gonna make GTP the most boring thing ever. They were gonna win everything and run away with the championship with those kinds of resources. And then they just didn't. They like didn't do anything. And I'm like, huh. Well, okay then. But honestly, with the resources of Porsche and the Volkswagen group, And, the Penske group, really, honestly, I think they should have. And I know, BOP and blah, blah, blah goes some way towards eliminating that. But I really feel like they should have done better than they did. So, nope, they didn't beat the allegations. Not for me,
I
at least.
mean, they did over the off-season time, they did do some like driver switches. Like I think
Hmm.
they now have Matt Campbell, who was in IMSA, is now going to the World Endurance Championship and switching places with Dane Cameron. So I don't know if that will do anything. I'm not inclined to say that it will.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I can't think that a minor driver shuffle is going to be enough to really make leaps and bounds with this team. So, yeah,
I mean, to
no.
be honest, I feel like most of the issue is like the car and not
Hmm.
really driver so much. I mean, you can make the argument that, some of their drivers were a little bit slower than others, not naming names, but is mainly a car issue, I would say.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that assessment, actually. So, nope, did not beat the allegations. Well, we'll see you next year, Porsche Penske. And then next we have Peugeot Sport, and well, JT is gonna start laughing at me because I have been highly sympathetic towards this team. I think the car is just about one of the coolest things ever, and I wanted so desperately for this car to work. But as JT pointed out last week, really they had a little bit of a head start with development and blah blah blah, and this car really should have been faster than what it was. And then it seemed like Le Mans was kind of a breakthrough, because they even led for a bit overall, but this no rear wing concept, it just didn't work. And it drives me mad because it's slow. So honestly, beat the allegations again, no. But it genuinely breaks my heart to say that because I love this car so much.
I mean,
And
it's just
to
very unique, but
hmm
unfortunately, I mean, probably not shocking, but having a rear wing does a lot for the car, and you take that away, and it's like, well, it's
yeah,
I don't
no,
even know.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think it's so cool that they didn't do a rear wing and that they tried with more underbody aero to find the downforce to leave the top of the car clean for speed. But yeah, well, it was an aero concept that didn't work. Funny enough, talking about the Mercedes and the zero side pod, this was one of them. I need to buy a die cast of this car before they put a wing on it. I think I need to buy the Le Mans livery one because that white and kind of rainbowy that they did looked great. But that's a bummer. But well, we're getting to two teams that are on this list.
So
I am absolutely not.
Peugeot beat the allegations, or they didn't, rather.
No,
I
they
would say they
didn't.
didn't.
No, they didn't. But two teams that I feel less fond of. Well, the first one being Van Wall, and I don't think any. Do we really need to run through that laundry list? I don't
No.
think so. But yeah, they're just slow. I mean, you're talking about, you know, when there's no reason you should be squabbling with P2s every race, and they were.
Somebody literally made a joke that the reason why Van Wall wasn't on the entry list for the World Endurance Championship next season was because they were a P2 car and because they dropped the P2s in the World Endurance Championship, so that's why they weren't there.
That's hilarious. If only that were actually true. I love that.
I mean,
But yeah,
it pretty much was true
yeah,
because they
it
never,
was.
even when they started the race, every time you could go back and watch. I shit you not, every single race start of the World Endurance Championship this season, and you would have everybody else in the hypercar field accelerate, and then it's always Van Wall being like dead last and accelerating with the P2s.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like I said, it's just a slow car. It was just a crappy car. It's just that simple. It's a minor miracle that WEC doesn't have like any, like 107% rule like the way Formula One does, because otherwise they wouldn't make like any race if that were the case, just based on that alone in hypercars. Like it is nutty how slow that car is. Um, yeah, no, it sucks. So no, not beating the allegations like at all, and I have no desire for them to beat the allegations, frankly. They're just terrible. So, so long, farewell, and I am very happy to see you go. Um, and then next is well, they already left, but is Glickenhaus. And well, I think if you followed me on Twitter for any amount of time, I have done nothing but trash that team. They Jim Glickenhaus is an asshole. They didn't test, and that was why the car was slow. And then also because they didn't satisfy homologation requirements either. And they got a little bit of a stay of execution there, and then just didn't do it because, well, we don't want to build that many cars. Like, well, what the hell do you mean you don't want to? If you want to race, then you need to build this many cars. And that's also the reason why they're not in IMSA, because IMSA's for various components, homologating is actually even more stringent than WEC is. And IMSA just won't have it. But yeah, it's like, and of course, not to mention that this team fizzled out. It wasn't even halfway through the season that this team died formally. So, like, I don't fuck you. I can't. I hate this team so much.
No, they didn't even make it halfway through the season. I don't know, whatever the race, I just know that they were not at Monza. That was the race. I mean, they might have been at Monza. I think they were. I think Monza might have been the last race for them. Which even that, I was shocked that they were even at Monza because I was sure that they probably weren't even gonna make that race, but they did. And after that, that was it. And I mean, it's funny because like I still see them posting stuff on Twitter, and it just feels so weird because I'm like, what do you even do now? Like, you're not in the World Endurance Championship anymore. I mean, are they even in any series now?
No, because like I said, they pitched a fit because IMSA wouldn't basically let them enter basically a special car. Because like I said, IMSA does or have homologation requirements for certain components. Ergo, you can have prototypes, but there needs to be some element of it being production based, namely the engine. And like I said, then Jim Glickenhaus, he pitched a fit, and he's adding IMSA on Twitter, and it's like, oh my god, it's like you spiteful, spineless asshole. It's like I hate you so much. And because it's funny, if you watch for anybody who pays attention to their Twitter, you can tell when it's the social media team that are doing what they do. And then when basically Jim snatches the keys from them and just starts tweeting through it, it is so obvious the shift in tone with that team. And it's part of why a lot of folks don't like them.
I mean, I wonder if is it Jim who's the one who like just blocks people? Because I know a lot of people are blocked by them on Twitter at least.
Probably. But let's see. So what has Glickenhaus been up to? Because
They've been
wait, I'm gonna
posting a bunch of like random like photos and like videos and stuff. It's really funny. And it's just
and
kind of
actually
weird. I'm like,
it just occurred to me I'm gonna have to hop on the burner because they blocked me too on my main, so I can't actually look. Okay.
it's funny because Van Wall and Glickenhaus, they did not beat the allegations, and to be honest, they never will because
Nope.
they're not even racing next season, and who knows if they'll race the season after that. So to be honest, they're never beating the allegations.
No, never. And like I said, for the memes, it's kind of a bummer that Van Wall won't be back because that's just kind of funny. But like I said, I despise Glickenhaus with just about every fiber of my being. And so I'm very happy that they won't be back because it means, again, they can't contest it. I don't even want them to add to the meme. I just want them to go away. If Glickenhaus could just stop functioning as a corporate entity, the world would be a better place. It's
You're
that
preying on
futurist.
their bankruptcy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that meme with like that futuristic city, and it's like the world if blank.
Society of Scuderia, Cameron Glickenhaus didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so no, I'm just going through here looking through their Twitter real quick. And yeah, now they're basically just talking about basically homologating the road cars, which is hilarious because that's part of why they were pissed off about all this to begin with, is because they didn't want to build road cars. But that's what they're doing.
At this point, it's too late now.
I was just about to say they withdrawn their entry and made it quite
Like
clear
they
that they
blew
don't.
it already.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the only
Yeah,
people I feel bad for is like the mechanics and stuff that were had to work on the car and stuff like that, and they lost their jobs and stuff.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. Oh, holy smokes. Actually, I'm reading a motorsport magazine article and it's hilarious because Van Wall is actually mentioned. Like, it's hilarious when these two teams are mentioned in the same breath. I didn't realize that Van Wall was just straight up denied entry.
Yeah, they were because I think they had like an engine deal approved with a manufacturer, but it was approved I think after they were denied entry or something like that, or like right before,
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah, interesting. Funny enough, it's almost like, these, crappy, back marker teams, almost like I don't pay a ton of attention to them because they're crappy back marker teams, but in a way that is not usually funny. So yeah, no, I didn't realize they had just been flat out denied. So, well, that's a shame. Not really. But it's so funny. This feels like honestly, it feels like Jim paid for Motorsport to write this piece, if I'm being honest. Oh, the last of the privateers and all romanticizing and blah blah blah. And they won't be forgotten. I'm like, you have like a billion hypercars coming to WEC next year.
They will be
Nope.
forgotten, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're absolutely going to be forgotten because everybody's going to be too busy ogling the new stuff. It's like you're going to have a rash of new hypercars because BMW is joining, Lamborghini is joining. Um,
The Italian people, the Asada
oh, the Asada.
fettuccine.
Oh my god. Yes, Asada Frescini. Yeah. Well, at least they purported that they're still joining. We'll see if that actually comes to pass. But given the drama that they have found themselves embroiled in, like I said, that whole thing is very, very Italian. But yes, so no, Glickenhaus never not beating the allegations and never will. Showed up to the funeral to make sure that he's dead.
Another team I was tempted to put on this list, but I didn't, was Andretti Autosport, specifically in IndyCar.
Honestly, I don't think that that would have been a bad one to put on the list. We've talked about it ad nauseum, especially covering kind of the last few races of the season. But and then also talking about, that when Roman announced that he was basically launching legal proceedings into his dismissal from the team. Like Andretti should be better than they are, should be faster than they are, but they have a whole bunch of drivers that like very specific setups on these cars, and then it's like feels like they can't glean any useful data from any of this, and the car just kind of sucks to drive. Um, so I would probably put them on fraud watch personally, and actually I would put them on fraud watch and no asterisk either for them, not for me anyway. Like I said, really just do better. Stop it, get help.
I mean, some of it, I feel like maybe they are working towards steps to being a serious team next season because they did downsize to 3 cars, and maybe that will help them a little bit. Um, because I know like Devlin, everybody knows he was only signed because he's a pay driver. His dad
Yeah.
has money, so that's why it has really nothing to do with him being a good driver or anything like that. So it's like maybe they decided, we're gonna stop hiring pay drivers and we're actually gonna get serious. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. And like I said, I'll be happy to be wrong. I don't have any particular personal gripes with the Andretti, Autosport or, Andretti Global now. I don't have any particular beefs with them as an entity. So, I'll be more than happy to take them off this list next year, but it feels like we've had just too many years of them not really being particularly productive when I think they probably should be. and
They
that is where.
really they had no problem with it was really like specific tracks. Like they had no
Mhm.
problem with like road courses and street circuits, but when it came to ovals,
Yeah,
it was
ovals are just
yikes.
yeah, ovals are just so bad. Um, but yeah, we'll see. But the funny thing is, I think if certainly they don't make any progress this coming season, I think, well, Arrow McLaren also has some things they need to work out. But I figure they could be in a position to like properly leapfrog Andretti if Andretti stays stagnant for too much longer. But yeah, I say so. In speaking of, I guess the Andretti entry, any more kind of honorable or dishonorable mentions to throw in before we wrap on this episode?
The FIA.
Yeah, okay, I should have seen that coming. Fair enough. Um, so I guess, we talked about this being a light and more fun episode because, typically what we do is a bit information dense. Well, especially with this legal proceedings with the FIA versus Toto and Susie Wolf, started working on a long and information dense script for that. I'm kind of waiting for everything to shake itself out. Might be next week's episode, could possibly be the week after, depending on sort of what happens. But yeah, no, it's absolutely they're never beating the allegations like ever. The FIA has been an absolute mess, basically. It's been a continuous rolling car crash for the last I don't know, 25 years. In some form or another, and certainly with Mohammed bin Sulayem, they're not beating that at all because he's just an idiot. Like as much as I complained about Michael Massey, and no, don't get me wrong, Michael Massey was brick stupid too, but bin Sulayem, the issue is it's like that. I think Michael Massey possessed some level of self awareness. He didn't exactly try, but see, bin Sulayem likes to think and think that he's just playing, seventh dimensional backgammon here with the decisions that he makes and the stuff that he does, but he has just no clue what he's doing. He's like that idiot who thinks he's smart. That is MBS, and it's so irritating. Like I, I genuinely, out of the heads of the FIA, he is probably the one that I dislike the most. Occasionally you get memes out of it, because what he did for trying to get Andretti on the grid has basically caused the team principals to basically all start eating each other, and okay, that's kind of funny. I don't really have too many issues with that because I don't have much love for really any of the team principals. But yeah, this whole thing with the investigation of the Wolves has just been a mess. And then some of the other decision-making stuff has been, just like I said, it's been a complete mess. So now the FIA, they're never beating the allegations, ever. Like the FIA would need to dissolve before they even had a hope of beating the allegations, and I don't think that will ever happen.
No, as much as people prey on their downfall and pray that they will liquidate, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
But
maybe we'll see an FIA F1 split happen though before
oh,
they
that would be so
dissolve.
glorious. Like we've gotten so close to that a couple of times, like in the 80s with FISA, which was effectively the precursor to the FIA, and FOCA got really, really close. And then after the absolute nightmare that was Indy 2005, we got really, really close to a true breakaway championship, but it's not happened. And part of me is really, really hoping that maybe this will be the catalyst for a breakaway.
I just
Like
hope
it,
it happens because I want like other racing series to like flourish and people finally see the light.
yes, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, don't get me wrong, a split would be an unmitigated if IndyCar, the IndyCar split is anything to go by. Yes, no, a split in Formula One would be an unmitigated nightmare. But yes, but it would basically kill F1, and yes, it means other people would have the opportunity to watch stuff that's actually good. I said it in a tweet a couple years ago after they released the TV ratings for basically every race for Formula One for American viewership. Stop letting NASCAR and Formula One feed you, frankly, a dog shit racing product. Go watch sports car racing. Go watch IndyCar. Go watch literally anything except those two, and you will actually enjoy motorsports. I promise. Other racing series are good. Just,
That's why I literally hate whenever I see F1 fans on my timeline have something happen to their driver in the race or whatever, something happens, and they get so bent out of shape about it. I'm like, bro, you are literally missing out. You are missing out on a whole world of racing. And some of it, like, I don't bother because some of them I know are they are fine with F1. They will stick with F1 and they will be with F1 to the day they die, to their last breath. So some of it's like I don't there's no point in me trying to like get them to watch other things, but I do try it when some of them are open to it.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. It's like y'all have got to stop. Like it is wild watching basically 38 weeks of NASCAR and then, well, this year 21 Formula 1 races, literally watching that dominate the top 50 spots and rankings. It's like that is absurd to me. It's like, and the only thing was a couple of IndyCar races snuck in there, and that's the only reason why, we didn't have, 51 races, but it's like, yeah, it's like, you guys have got to stop this. Like, I promise there's a wide world of motorsports out there that are just all so much better. It's like, yeah, I get it. The next gen car looks cool, but it sucks to race. I understand the drama in F1 can be
To
kind
be
of
honest,
fun.
to me, at least for me, when I see hypercars and GTPs, the next gen doesn't exist. I'm like, what's the next gen? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. I like that when I say next gen, I mean, given that it's been out for a couple years, really, it's just Gen 7 now. Um, I understand, it's very GT adjacent for me. It's like if you took the, giant wing off of, the Aston or the Lexus and then just put, well, to quote Dale Jr., just put a big ass spoiler on it. That's what the next gens kind of remind me of in the way that they look. So that's why I like them more than aesthetically, at least, than basically anything since freaking Car Tomorrow. Those cars were so ugly. But 'cause I think they look great. But yeah, but they suck to race on anything but intermediates. And like I said, Formula One, well, these cars actually just kind of suck to race everywhere, truth be told. Vegas was good, and that was like it. But yeah, so no, stop. Please stop. And maybe that's the fraud watch. My honorable mention fraud watch is for the American motorsports viewing base. It's like, y'all got to stop this. It's like seeing the constant complaints about, oh, NASCAR sucks so much and Formula One sucks so much. Go watch something else. I promise it won't kill you to watch, you know, an enduro sprint, a sports car sprint race. It's like, truth be told, especially with the amount of green, white checkers in NASCAR, the sprint races are about the same length as NASCAR races are these days. It's like, go watch that. I don't know, go find some stream of questionable legality of WRC.
To be honest,
All
I feel like a decent amount of NASCAR fans, they don't know it yet, but I feel like most NASCAR fans would honestly like friggin' like some GT racing series like DTM, especially how DTM was last year. To be
hmm
honest, I couldn't tell the difference between if that was DTM, a touring car race, or NASCAR stock
Oh
cars.
yeah, the way they
I'm
were
like,
beating and
literally,
banging, yeah.
I'm like, it was giving so much NASCAR that I'm like, NASCAR fans would actually like this.
Exactly. Yeah, no, DTM, at its best does in some ways feel a lot like NASCAR. It was actually part of why I liked the Chicago street course so much because that felt like just a DTM race in some regards. Um, but yes, go watch, Super Formula instead of watching Formula One. Super Formula is so good. The cars run close, the racing is super competitive. Like, if you had said I could only watch one open wheel series for the rest of my life, it would probably be Super Formula. It's so good. So yeah, my fraud watch is for mine is for the fans, and well, they not beating the allegations, and they probably never will if my timeline is anything to go by week in and week out.
No, they're
But
not.
but I guess with that, anything else before we close out this very fun and very silly episode?
No.
Well, like alluded to earlier, I am, like I said, working on a longer form script about, this nonsense with the FIA versus the Wolves and the 10 teams, ostensibly of Formula One itself. So, we will return sort of business as usual coming up here. Like I said, probably next week, because it seems like this incident has fizzled out very quickly, actually. I thought this might be, a 3-week in the making script, but well, we started and concluded in basically 48 hours. So it shouldn't take me too long to get that written up. And then, from there we'll see, maybe I'll get started on some of the other long form stuff. But that is sort of the tentative plans going forward. Of course, these things are subject to change. But at any rate, thank you for listening to us be very silly for the last almost 2 hours. Um, yeah, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one. Until next time.